Hello everyone. My name is Vartika and it is a pleasure that today I will be talking about Indian Speaks, a journey of resilience. This is a documentary by Marcel Carey and I would be doing this on behalf of Group E. The other members of my group are Darshi, Rabia and Drumil, and we are a part of the project management program at Algoma University. So let's start. So, in this presentation, we would be talking about the synopsis of the details of the film, explaining questions like who, where, when, what, why, and how for the documentary summary, historical context of the film, scholarly connections, personal insights, conclusions, and references. Before we begin, it is important to look at the overview of the documentary. The documentary Indian Speaks from the National Film Board of Canada provides a portrayal of the lives and perspectives of Indigenous people in Canada during the 1960s. Through personal narratives and candid interviews, the film delves into the challenges faced by Indigenous communities, highlighting themes of cultural resilience, activism, and the quest for self determination. Indian Speaks is a 1971 National Film Board of Canada documentary directed by Morgie Bucage, with a particular emphasis on the experiences of a young Métis child named George Adam, whose story unfolds against the backdrop of the political and social realities of the time. The film offers a comprehensive glimpse into the lives and viewpoints of Indigenous people in Canada. Who is George Adam? He is basically the guide of the documentary and is a lively little Métis boy. And George, a Métis person living in an urban environment, struggles with his identity, having been reared in Winnipeg. His experiences are significantly shaped by his family, friends, and community members. George's path is of one of identity and self-discovery. He struggles with being Métis, divided as he is between his traditional ancestors' custom and the city he considers home. Now, in the documentary, if we dive deep into George's struggle with identity, growing up, he grapples with what it means to be Métis. He often finds himself questioning where he fits in. He is torn between the traditional ways of his ancestors and but at the same time he's also allured by the modern world that he is currently living in. Now talking about the historical context of the film, this basically pivots around the rise of the Red Power movement. Indian Speaks emerges from a crucial period in Canadian history characterized by significant shifts in Indigenous rights and activism. In 1960s and 1970s, witnessed the rise of the Red Power movement, inspired by civil rights movement in the United States. Indigenous people in Canada, including Métis and First Nation communities, began organizing to demand recognition of their rights, land claims, and cultural autonomy. It was during this era the Canadian government implemented policies such as the White Paper that was in 1969, which proposed to assimilate Indigenous people into mainstream society by abolishing the Indian Act and dismantling reserves. This proposal was met with a strong opposition from Indigenous leaders and communities, leading to increased activism and a resurgence of cultural pride. Against this backdrop, Indian Speaks provides a depiction of the challenges faced by Indigenous individuals and communities, highlighting the impact of historical injustices such as residential schools, forced relocation, and system discrimination. The documentary very beautifully also highlights the impact of colonialism. Indian Speaks offers a lens through which to explore the ongoing effects of colonialism on indigenous communities. Drawing from the insights of scholars such as Tayaki Alfred and Franz Fanon, the film illuminates resistance and resilience as crucial responses to oppressive system. But the legacy of colonialism looms large. Policies like the White Paper of 1969 threatened to assimilate indigenous people into mainstream society, erasing their cultures and identities. George's community, like many others, bears the scar of this painful history. Forced relocations, the establishment of residential schools, and the loss of traditional lands have left deep wounds that continue to impact indigenous communities even today. Between all the injustice that was happening, the community of indigenous people displayed brilliant cultural resilience. George's family and community hold on to their traditions, passing them down to the next generation. They find strength in their cultural practices and connections to the land. Through ceremonies, storytelling, and traditional practices, George learns about his heritage and finds a sense of belonging. These cultural traditions are not just a link to the past, but a source of strength for the future. The documentary resonates deeply with discussions on Indigenous identity and cultural resilience. George's journey depicted in the film reflects the experiences of many Indigenous people who navigate the complexities of urban life while endeavoring to maintain connections to their heritage. In the film, education has been portrayed as a powerful tool for empowerment. George learns about his history of his people, gaining a sense of pride and understanding. Because of this, education becomes a pathway to reclaiming indigenous identity. By learning about the struggles and triumphs of his ancestors, George finds inspiration to become a leader in his community. Education becomes not just a means to end, but a tool for activism and change. Now, talking about the visual sovereignty that has been portrayed in this film. The documentary is capturing George's journey, is a testament to visual sovereignty. It tells the story from an indigenous perspective, reclaiming narratives and offering authentic representations of indigenous experiences. Scholars like Steve Loft contribute to discussions on visual sovereignty in indigenous media. Their perspectives highlight how films like Indian Speaks reclaim narratives and offer authentic representation of indigenous experiences, empowering indigenous people to control their own stories. Through intimate interviews, observational scenes, and poetic narration, Indian Speaks weaves a compelling narrative that invites viewers to empathize with George and his community. The film employs a blend of documentary realism and artistic storytelling, incorporating elements of indigenous oral traditions and visual symbolisms. Now, talking about personal insights and the team's reflection. The team agreed that just like many of the ceremonies that were seen in this documentary of indigenous people, even in our home country back in India, many festivals are very similar to the festivals or ceremonies of indigenous people. For example, back in our home country as well, most of the festivals are connected to nature, wherein we pray to trees, animals, water bodies, and the sun. It is mostly about community and family, and even In our home country, most of the festival is most of the festival starts by paying respect to our ancestors, which is very, very similar to the ceremonies of that of the indigenous people as shown in the documentary. Due to this, we could not help but connect emotionally with George's story and contemplate the broader implication of colonial legacies. The film invites introspection on the importance of listening to indigenous voices, amplifying their stories, and actively engaging in reconciliation efforts. As we witness George's story, we are invited to reflect in our own understanding of Indigenous experiences. His journey of resilience challenges us to confront the ongoing injustices faced by Indigenous communities and to actively engage in reconciliation efforts. Now, coming to conclusion of what we have learned from the documentary and concluding the assignment, the documentary Indian Speaks is a monument to the determination, power, and continuing cultural legacy of Indigenous people in Canada. The video offers a profound and comprehensive knowledge of the difficulties experienced by Indigenous communities at a critical period of social growth via the perspective of human tales and historical background. The documentary, both as a historical record and as a call to action at the same time by elevating the voices of Indigenous people and bringing attention to crucial concerns including cultural preservation and rights to advocacy. As viewers, as viewers interact with the narratives presented in Indian Speaks, they are encouraged to consider how crucial it is to acknowledge and respect Indigenous viewpoints, fight for social justice, and promote deep conversations that lead to peace. In Indian Speaks, A Journey of Resilience, we have explored the life of George Adam and the broader themes of identity, resilience, and cultural heritage. Through George's eyes, we see a community that continues to thrive despite historical and contemporary challenges. Over here, we have listed references from where we have collected the data for this assignment and this presentation. That would be all from my side. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.